Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the practice habits session that I'm trying to put together for this video series. My name is Dr. Matthew Geiger and I am the Vice President of the Tennessee chapter of the Percussive Arts Society, as well as the Director of Percussion Studies here at East Tennessee State University. Today I want to continue some of the discussion that I brought up last time in our practice habits series. Last week we talked about 3 key important elements to any good practice session. Number 1, using a metronome. Number 2, setting goals for your session. And then number 3, making sure you have a way of assessing whether or not you're doing a good job in that session. Today we're going to go down even more specific avenues so that you can hopefully learn a few different tricks and tools to get better in the practice room. The first thing I want to talk about today are different modes of practice. And I'm going to go over to a marimba and show you a few of those modes. The second thing I want to talk about are ways of using metronomes in a different way so that when you're practicing with time, you're also working on not just relying on that time, but providing your own sense of internal pulse and using the metronome to help check that. And the third thing is a simple game that you can play to help make sure that you're being consistent with every rep that you're doing on an instrument. And I'll head over to a xylophone for that. So without any further ado, let's head over to the marimba and get started with modes of practice. So up first is a conversation about different modes of practicing. When we talked about setting goals for yourself, we mentioned a little bit about the different types of goals. Maybe a goal is to learn just a small phrase. Maybe a goal is to learn how to play a whole piece in one practice session. And so to be more specific, there are 3 main ways that you can organize your practice session. The first is to specifically learn the notes. Now, when I say learn the notes, I don't mean just learn note names. I mean learn all the stickings, learn the right rhythms, learn the dynamics, learn any musicality you want to add to this. A lot of times we just learn the notes, and then we learn the rhythm, and then we learn the dynamics. And that makes us really slow sight readers, and it also has us unlearn a lot of muscle memory that we learned in the very beginning. So if you're going to learn something, learn it right the very first time. So going into this first note learning mode of practice, this is really the time for us to just slowly process every note. I'm going to use scales today as an example, particularly major scales and arpeggios. And so if I'm trying to learn a scale for the very first time, maybe my teacher told me how scales are constructed. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half step. And so I might look at a D flat and go, I don't know a D flat major scale, but I can process whole step up, whole step up, half step up, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and finish that. And that is the simple part of learning the notes. I'm not trying to stab at every one of these notes and just try and hear it right. Because all that does is develop bad practice habits and also bad muscle memory. So when I come to this the next time and I want to play my D flat major scale, I've got a lot of choices. But if I only learn the right notes from the very beginning, my brain has a lot fewer choices of wrong notes or wrong rhythms to play. That's the first very quick step. Once you're done learning the notes, the second mode becomes refining. We're not going to skip from learn the notes, now play it for everybody all the way through. We're going to go learn the notes and then start refining what we're doing. And again, I'll stick to D flat. Now that I've learned the D flat scale, I want to refine it and I want to play it consistently. I'll talk about consistency a little later, but I want to refine this and make it really consistent and accurate as best I can. And so I'm going to get my handy dandy metronome out and let's go 120. So now that I've got my metronome going, I'm going to play that D flat major scale in 8th notes, trying to be as accurate as possible. That was pretty good, but now I can try and go up 2 octaves to work on my footwork as well. I might do that several more times to make sure I'm consistent. I also want to work on the arpeggio, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of that scale. trying to be as accurate as possible, not only on the notes, but in terms of sound quality. Am I playing on similar spots on the bars, or am I moving my hands too far and playing close to the nodes? I'll do this for a while, refining. This is that second mode where we should live in the most. And then finally, once we feel like we're really confident, we can play that scale pretty accurately every time. I move into the third stage, which is the performance mode. When I decide to practice the performance mode, that means I'm not going to stop and fix a mistake, nor am I going to focus on what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to just play through what I want to do, and then after assess whether or not I did it well, which is why I've got this videotape running, so that I can watch back and see whether I hit a few nodes, or if I missed a few notes, or maybe my sticking got a little messed up. So let's slow it down a little bit so we can use 16th notes and try a performance run of about 5 scales. We'll see, again, just hoping that no matter what I do, I just keep going. Even if I miss a note or two, this is practicing just performing. So here we go. So up next, I want to talk about a few different metronome tips and tricks you can use rather than just playing with straight time the entire time, in hopes that you might develop more of an internal sense of pulse and rather than relying entirely on the metronome. So for first thing I need my metronome out. So I'm going to pull my metronome app up, make sure my phone's on Do Not Disturb so that I'm not distracted while I'm in the middle of my practice session. And I'm playing Cerrone Etude No. 1 from Portraits in Rhythm. Very popular piece, and so we'll start with right at tempo at 132. I'm going to play the first phrase right with the metronome, maybe with an accent every beat or every bar so that I get a chance to hear how my part lines up with every measure. 1, 2, 1, 2. And just like the last video, I want to try and make it all the way to the downbeat. I'll do it again. So that's not much of a metronome tip or trick other than make sure you're using the metronome. Here's where the tip comes in. Now I'm going to start to get rid of some of those beats so that now I can practice with maybe just half note pulse instead of a quarter note to double check my internal sense of pulse. So I'll get rid of beats 2 and 4. 1, 2. That's the first thing. Get rid of time so that you can use your own internal sense of pulse. I could do this all the way to maybe even 4 whole notes. Another way to play with time is to put all 4 beats back. And instead of having this be the downbeat, let's make that the upbeat. Let's turn my snare off so you can really hear the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. It can really mess with the way that you feel pulse in the time, and it also really solidifies whether or not you are playing right in time with the 16th note or 8th note grid. Another thing you can do that's pretty fun is to take this metronome out and replace it with something that's a little more groovy. And so for my example, I'm going to pull up GarageBand, which is a free app on an iPhone, but there's several different free apps. And I'm going to pull out a song that I made. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and. instead of just playing with a ticking pulse, I now have a groove to play along with, and that can help me play more melodically on snare drum. I hope these have been a little bit of help and gives you some ideas on how you could use your metronome and also your smartphone to better work on your practice habits. Moving forward, I want to move into the xylophone and go into a fun little game you can play to work on consistency. And for our final practice habit, tip, trick, whatever you'd want to call it, we're back over here on the xylophone now, and we're going to practice Porgy and Bess, an excerpt that's really tough. And so I want to get better at this for maybe an orchestral audition, or I'm working on this for grad school, or whatever reason. And so I really want this to be accurate and right every time. And so to work on that, I'm going to play a little game. And for this game, I need, 5 anythings, and I'll use 5 pennies. So I'll pull out 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's grab the 5th one, 5. And so to play this game really simply, I want to make sure that I do 5 reps perfectly in a row. And if I make one mistake, it all washes over and I start over. And so let's start with the metronome. And I'm going to try and play just the opening phrase. Okay, that's 1. Two in a row. Three in a row, that's not bad. But I'm starting to get a little nervous, because if I mess up, now it all goes away. I got this. Sweet. One more. All right. At that point, I did 5 in a row. I should feel pretty good about myself. I might be able to go take a little break and reward myself with maybe some time on drum set or a drink of coffee or something. And then I do it all over again. And so with this method, it really helps you make sure you're doing good reps every time. And if you do the same mistakes over and over again, don't just keep starting over. Slow the tempo down. Maybe practice a smaller chunk. It wouldn't be a great idea for me to just start right away with, all right, I'm going to try and run it and see if I can do it 5 times in a row. No, I want to build up into that. And so that's a good, useful way of playing the penny game. And so here, let's see if I can do one run of Porgy and Bess all the way through. Thank you for watching and tuning in on some of these practice tips and tricks. I hope that you were able to learn a few new things that you might be able to incorporate in your next session in the practice room or band room. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and reach out at geigerm@etsu.edu. That's GEIGERM@etsu.edu. I'd be happy to hear from you. Also, make sure you check out more of the videos that we're putting out on the Tennessee PAS YouTube page. There's a lot of great information out there, and we hope you enjoy. Stay safe out there and happy practicing.